And we're back, and it's COMP392 Advanced Graphics, and it's week 6, part 4 of our broadcasts. We just ended up talking about a little bit of Blender, and you're like, hey, what does Blender have to do with what we're doing? Well, remember what we do with Blender is the important piece. It's not Blender itself. Blender is just a tool for us to visualize, right? That's what I'm using it like. So notice when I press play, the cube falls. Let's try this again. So press play, the cube falls now, and it kind of lands on my plane, yeah? I want to move this cube around, and one way to do simulations in Blender without doing any coding is to use something called logic bricks, right? And some of you may already know logic bricks. Who knows logic bricks? No one knows logic bricks. That's great. So you guys learned something new. Blender is primarily programmed on the back end with Python. All right, so Python and JavaScript, really different. Python is a real language. It's still a scripting language, but it's something that's compiled. And JavaScript is more just for web technologies for now, although it can be used for other things as well, like to build mobile apps. But let's take a look at this. I want to add some logic to this thing. And in Blender, like Unreal Engine and other game engines as well, Blender has a game engine that's built into it called Blender Game, that we've been kind of using for now. But it's really for us to simulate physics, because again, we're going into the second part of this course is about adding physics to our 3JS world, right? But first we need to understand physics a little bit, right? And we're going to use, Blender still uses bullet physics, just like Unreal and Unity, right? Same kind of concept here. Okay, so what I really want to do is I want to create some logic, and there's another view that I can go to do that. Or down here where instead of us having our animation view, I can turn this into the logic editor. So let's do that. So on the bottom left corner, notice that there's this little corner here that tells me the different kinds of editor type. I want to change my editor type from my animation editor, right, what you're seeing right now, the timeline. I want to change it so we see logic. So we go to the logic editor here. Notice how my view has changed now. When I switch the bottom to my logic editor, let me move this up for you to see it. I'm going to zoom in by zooming like I normally would do. Right? So zoom in here. And you can see that I have a couple things that are going on here. Right? Notice that as I have my, if I focus on just my camera or just my cube, it's just showing the object that I'm focusing in on. In the logic view. Again, all I've done is change this bottom left-hand corner here. I've moved to logic editor. That's what I've done here. I've moved it up. Okay, cool. We're going to add some logic. But I really want to look at the hero. And when I look at the hero object, that's the one I want to move, not the camera or the cube. Make sure only the hero object is selected. Okay? And we'll make this, scrunch this in a little bit here. Okay, notice this, that I have a couple of things here. I have a little section that says sensors. Another section in the middle that says controllers, and the third section on the right that says actuators. And don't think about these are big words, okay? But they may be one day, we might talk about them on a test, see how it goes. But so sensors, think about a sensor as an event listener, okay? Think of it that way. And think about an actuator, forget the controller for a second, but think about the actuator as the event handler, all right? So here's the event listener, the sensor, and here's the event handler, the actuator. What I need to do is decide what sensor I'm going to listen for. So I'm going to click Add Sensor. And now notice that there are different sensors I can add. For example, a keyboard sensor. I want to press my keyboard, my left and right arrows, and I want to move left and right along my axis. So I'll click Keyboard, and it adds this big section here for the sensor. Notice that there's a section here for keys. I'm going to click on the key right here, this area right here, and then press the key. I want to make this the left key, so I'm going to press the left arrow. And it says left arrow here. Okay? So I added a sensor, chose keyboard, pressed it here for left, and I click my left arrow. Okay? Now notice that it says keyboard, and to the right, there's a friendly name for this, this event handler called keyboard, but that doesn't make any sense. I want to call this thing left arrow, just so that way we know which one it is. This is the left arrow event listener. So when my left arrow gets pressed, something needs to happen. Okay, let's add a couple more. You can also collapse this detail here by clicking this little down arrow. So now I have this little sensor. Okay, cool. Let's add another sensor. And I'm going to add another keyboard sensor. So another keyboard sensor. And we're going to make this keyboard, we're going to call this right arrow. Okay. And I'm going to click into the key area and click the right arrow. So it says right arrow. Right. And I've got those two. Right. So right arrow and left arrow. There. So I've kind of programmed listeners for those two functions, left arrow and right arrow. Okay, cool. On the right, where it says add actuator, right? I'm going to click add actuator. And now it's going to say, what do I want? Now, what do you think I need? How about motion? So when I click the left arrow, I want it to move to the left. When I click the right arrow, I want it to move to the right. So I'm going to click the motion actuator. And inside my motion actuator, there's different kinds of motion I can kind of click into. I can use simple motion. I can use character motion, which is what I really want. Okay, so let's click character motion. There's also all that adds in there is a jump, but this is cool. Leave it as is, right? But notice that, so if I want to use this for my left arrow, I want to move left across the x-axis, but let's say, and I want to click this little x-axis where it says location. I want to just click left of it by, let's say, a couple of clicks. So minus 0.2. Minus 0.2 every frame. And assuming this is moving at 60 frames per second, that's going to be quite quick, right? That's all I want this to do, just move to the left. And in order for me to make this work, I'm going to click on this little dot here. And I'm going to drag a line from the left to the right like this. And then the controller gets added in the middle right away. What is a controller? It's like a conditional, right? So it says this, when the left arrow key is pressed, and, right, means take this and combine it with this to create an action, which means the left arrow key is pressed, move to the left across the x-axis 0.2 units. Okay, that's one. And just to show that, let's just call this, instead of motion, we'll say move left. I'm going to do this again for a second for you. I'm going to review this for you for motion. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do another actuator. So I'm going to go add actuator, add motion. There we go. And then I'm going to move to the right a couple of knocks, so 0.2, or not dot zero, not zero, the old English way of saying it. Move right, there we go, move right. And I'm going to connect those two logic bricks like this with this arrow. So there we go. So I've got an event listener on the left, which is your sensor. I've got the event handler on the right, which is your actuator. And in the middle, that ties everything together, is your controller. Remember that this is on the back end is written in Python. So I'm using Python on the back end without actually coding anything. Okay, cool. Let's test this thing out. I've got left and right motion. I'm going to pull this down a little bit and press P for play. And now I'm going to use my left arrow and my right arrow to move my block around. There's my left arrow and right arrow. If I move off the thing, I'm going to fall. Right? Wouldn't it be nice if we can do the same thing with 3JS, where if I move my left arrow and my right arrow, right? Let's try this again. So press play and use my left arrow and my right arrow, and I can move around the scene, right? Notice that there's a bit of a float going on, right? I want to show you this. So I'm going to change my angle of my scene for a second, because it looks like what I got is that when I fall, when I press P for play, it falls, right? But it looked like it was floating. Now for now, it looks like he's on top of the scene. There it is. Right? So there's my left. And if I go to the right, oh, he falls down into oblivion, right? Okay, let's look at it from a camera view perspective. So here's my camera. I press play. Now, if I move to the left, whoa, and to the right, I can see that he's moving around the scene now, right? Left and right. So left and right controls are working now. Has everyone got this? I know I've seen some people are just watching me and they're like, what is he doing? Anyone not get it? Put your hand up, because we need to. I'm going to show you how to do a look controller with a mouse. You didn't get it? I'm going to show you again. So all I've done, again, is I've replaced the viewport on the bottom left. I replaced the viewport type from timescale to logic, right? And I've created two logic bricks. Stephen and friends over there, are you guys good? You guys understand logic bricks? Wendell, you're good? You're perfect with logic bricks? I can test you on it? Wendell's like, Tom, don't bother me. I'm doing my assignment. I'm going to add a couple more. So let's just do this again. So here's for you. So let's add two more. I'll make it so it goes forward and back. All right. So I'm going to add a sensor. I'm going to add a keyboard sensor. And this one I'll make this called up arrow. By the way, you can always watch the video later on this. I'll click the key, I press the up arrow, there it is. Do the down arrow too, so add sensor, keyboard, right? I'll change this, so I'll just rename it, so it's down arrow. There's a down arrow. Click in here, press the down arrow, right? And collapse this one. Okay, go over here to the right. Add a couple more actuators, right? Here's the motion actuator. And I'll say motion move forward. I'm moving forward, right? Move forward. And for this one, I want to move across the y-axis. And this is tricky. Should I put it a positive y or a negative y? Let's use positive 0.2, right? And we'll do one more actuator, and I get a motion actuator. And again, we'll change this to move back, move forward, move back, and this will be negative, a couple negative steps. And I'm just going to draw the line. I'm just going to drag this one from here to here, and this one from here to here, and I've got my logic bricks from moving forward and back. Let's try this out by pressing play, right? If I move forward, I go forward. If I move back, and I can fall down into oblivion, right? Let's try that again. So here I am, press, I can left, I can move forward and back, and if I can I press both buttons, I can move them at the same time. I can't turn my head though, right? All I can do is move forward and back with my arrow keys. To turn my head, I want a mouse look that I want to program into my game here. So I want to put the mouse look in place. And there's another sensor for that. So escape. Luckily, this is something that's new for Blender, fairly new over the last several releases. They've added this mouse look capability. Other before, we had to actually implant a Python script for this to work, but now no longer. It's built in. So we click Add Sensor. This time, I'm going to add a mouse sensor. Here's my mouse sensor. And notice that the mouse event is left button. This is a great way of creating UIs, user interfaces here in Blender. But I'm going to click, instead of left button, I'm going to click on mouse movement. That's the kind I want. So if you notice, there's mouse over, and here there's one that's called movement. So that's the one I want. So whenever my mouse moves, right, that's what's going to generate the event. Okay, on the right, I need another actuator, which is the handler. And we're going to go to mouse, right? And notice how it says visibility. That's the mode, right? The other one is look, which is what I really want. There's my look, and it has some constraints already built into the look. Mouse look functionality, right? And now I just got to connect them. Oop. There we go. So I've got my mouse movement, and over here I've got my mouse look, right? Let's leave it as mouse. And then let's try it out. So let's try out what the scene is going to look like. So press play, and now when I move my mouse, I can actually look around the scene, right? Like this. So this might be interesting for some of you. And I can move my guy around too. I can not only move, but wait, how come my character? Oh, there it is. Oh, okay. So here's my character moving around, and I can move around. Whoa! I even saw my shadow. There's that on my big blocky self, right? I can look down at myself, right, like this, right? So I move around, and I move over here, and I can move around my little plane that I got over here. Yay! The mouse kind of functionality. Okay, cool. There's still one more thing I like to do with this little guy. It's kind of a dark scene. Let's add some more light. So I'm going to Shift D, kind of pull some light around here, another spotlight, and then just rotate so that it kind of goes on this side. Kind of a double spotlight here, again for my scene. And again, my scene is going to be oriented this way, where the right to the right is positive X and to the top is positive Y, right? And this is my guy. He's going to fall into the scene. And let's go into my hero for a second and pull him back so that he's at the beginning of the scene over here. Yay. Okay, cool. All right, let's press play. And when we do that, boom, he falls. You can see that anywhere he looks, I'm just going to show you from the scene, he can actually, the whole character is rotating around my scene. Guys and girls, this is actually what's happening in 3JS. If you actually were to attach a mouse, my first-person controller, without Fizzy.js, which we're going to add in later on after next week, you can see that it's going to move around just like this. Let's just use the camera view for a second. Here's my camera view. Press play. As I fall down, I can look around, and if I look down, I'm actually tilting my whole body down. That's what's happening because it's following my head. My head is really my character, and this is how I can look around the scene, right? So I can have my mouse look kind of event. This is the simulation we want to get to. Hey, my ground is pretty darn ugly. Let's add some texture to the ground because our ground sucks. We haven't talked about texture yet, but it's coming. So how do I add a texture to the ground, right? And it's actually quite easy in Blender, right? In Blender, on the right-hand side, I'm going to click my ground. Here's my ground. And I'm going to go to this third one from the right, which is the texture. And I'm going to add a new texture onto my material. Now, notice that my material, there's no material, right? My material is there's just this brown, right? And I'm going to add a new texture right here. So let's add texture. So new. Okay, cool. I don't have a texture to add yet. I want to grab something from 3dtextures.com. So let's go to 3D, textures.com, right? Okay, that's not it. You don't want to go there, that's for sure. I want to go to cgtextures.com. I'll be okay. cgtextures.com, which actually is now just textures.com. And I want to hit, some kind of ground texture that I like. So let's choose the ground. And I want to choose something like gravel, maybe something that looks like this, a cobble of a type, and maybe one of these to make it more realistic, like this one right here. So click that one. And you know what? Let's do this one here. This is kind of a brick. And instead of small, notice that for premium, only premium users can download something with something larger than 1024 by 1024. That's okay. I'm just going to log in to download. I think I got my login here. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Let's see. It's a free account, actually. There we go. I can download, so I have a few credits, free credits for the day. This is one of them. So I'm going to download this texture. It's called Gravel Cobble, right? I'm going to put it on my desktop. Here's my desktop. I'm going to put this on there. Yay, it's there. And what I want to do is I want to attach my gravel cobble to this shape here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my image or movie, right? And I'm going to click on open, where it says down here under image. On the texture side, I'm going to click open. And I'm going to choose my desktop. I'm going to choose gravel cobble and press open image. I don't see it though, right? Even though it's here, it's not being seen. And why? Because my coordinates are UV, but I don't have a UV map for this. And I'm going to fix this by going to UV mapping. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to change my view for a second. I'm going to go to UV editing mode. And notice that on the right side, I have my object mode. And I've got to go into edit mode for this, right? Here's my edit mode. And on the right, on the left over here, there's two panes. On the right side or the left side. The left side is my pane. I'm going to open up my gravel cobble texture. Zoom back out. I'm going to select all, right? Here's my gravel cobble texture. I'm going to press U for unwrap and unwrap. Okay. And if you notice, I can unwrap. If I press unwrap, I can also go smart UV project. And on the right, on the left here, I don't see anything, right? Because it has to be. If I go into object mode, here's object mode, and I go on UV unwrap. It's not unwrap here. It's got to be done on this side, right? So here's my texture, and here's my stuff over here. So I got to go into edit mode on the left-hand side. Got to select all on this side, right? And then I got to go UV unwrap, right? And now the reason why we're not seeing it is because it's not rendering it. Because I'm not in material mode. This is what it looks like now. There's everything's unwrapped, but it's pretty darn large. The cobblestones are massive. Right, so we got to make it smaller. So over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to press S for scale. And move this way out here. So the cobbles are smaller. And go back into default mode. Right. And by the way, if you don't get any of this, don't worry. I'm going to do it again. This is just making it fancy for you guys. I don't expect you to remember this. So here's my cobble texture, right? And it's what I want to do with it is in my material. My texture mode on the bottom, right? I can see that there's some options that I have here. Diffuse, there's the diffuse for color, and there's also something called geometry. If I click on normal, I can, and if I reduce the scale a little bit, what I can do is I can give it a bit of a bump map. And I'm going to give it like a really small bump map, like 0.1 maybe 0.5, 0.05, 0.05. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's see what that looks like when I press play. I'm going to go back into this and press play. Oops. How about I go into regular mode and press play? Take a look now what it looks like. And there's like a real texture that I can walk on, right? It looks like I'm walking on cobblestones. Huh? So I can just walk around and walking on cobblestones. It looks like I'm really walking across some stuff, right? We're going to talk about textures. One of the things you have to do with textures, just like I've kind of quickly done here, is you need to, a lot of times, paint the texture on, which is, a texture is just an image that you're going to paint or apply to a surface. The surface, of course, has to have a material, right? So I take an image, just like you guys have done for your planets. I've seen most of you have these planets, and you're loading in the texture. The texture load that you're using, that, you know, the utility that you're using to load the texture, all it's doing is it's wrapping the texture around your material, right? No material, no texture. You can't have a texture without a material. Right? Material is almost like your container for the texture, right? And the material creates your shader. It kind of handles how your texture is being shaded. All right, so that's what the texture would look like. So here's a simulation that I want to get you guys to for the next assignment, assignment 3. I want you to build yourself a plane, right, with Three.js, just like this, right? I want you to add Fizzy.js, right? We're going to add that in. This is what's coming, okay? I'm telling you what's coming, right? We already have our controller that we just did last day. The next piece I'm going to add in is the physics, and whenever we press the buttons, you know, on our keyboard, right? I want to be able to navigate around the plane. In order for us to get there, we need a couple things. We need to do some basic physics. Here's a lab that we're going to have coming up after the exam, or the test, right? We're going to make some stuff fall into a plane. Okay, we're going to do that kind of stuff. It's going to be one of your labs, right? After we know how to make things fall into the plane, right, we're going to move around the plane very basically with our keyboard and mouse, just like we just did now, right? Now I did this in like 10 minutes. Making it work with Three.js, only going to take 10 minutes, right? Because we're scripting everything from scratch, right? There is no drag and drop interface like this. There is no logic bricks that we're going to create. It's all done like this. And the other thing that makes it really ugly, this is kind of ugly, my plane, just take it one step further, and I did this kind of with us when we did, for people who did Game Programming 1, remember, you can cut this plane up nicely, right? And make it into your maze that we did before, right? So how do I cut this up? Well, one thing you can do is you can do something with your plane where if I just have the ground plane activated here, I want to subdivide the plane, and I can do that, right? I can subdivide the plane a bunch of times by clicking subdivide, right? Here's subdivide. And I can subdivide this plane up like as many times as I want. Let's do a subdivision of about 10 cuts. Now my plane is subdivided into 10 cuts. I'm in edit mode, and I can press Control-Tab to select a face from my plane. Take a look now. What I can do is I can select different faces like this. Here's my plane, right? Let's just look like that. And I can press extrude and press Enter, and then I can press extrude again on the Z coordinate and make things rise up out of the ground to create almost like a maze-like effect. Right? Let's try my game out now, right? Really quickly. And press P. Oops. Go back into. Yeah, I'm inside here, and now I'm gonna run around, right? So here I am in the plane. I can see that there's this really weird wall here. We'll rock around the wall without falling down. See, can I walk into the wall? No, because the wall still has some kind of collider, right? Equivalent. And I can walk around the wall, and I can do it so that it's a bit of a maze. We're going to do this with Three.js, okay? And again, this is the beginning of our first-person shooter kind of game, right, that we're going to make. Any questions around this kind of preview that we're going to do? So next week, when we get together, Monday, right? Monday, we're going to do a review. Wednesday, we're going to write our exam, our little test, and it's going to be everything you know until now. The format's going to be the same. All I'm going to ask you is to put a couple of objects together in the scene, right? I may ask you to use the .GUI to move things around, just like we did in your assignments. And you're going to be given a template. You're not going to start from scratch. I'm going to give you a template on GitHub that you can download and start with. Okay, so you don't have to download your libraries and do all that stuff, because that's just a waste of time. Two things you need to do is you're going to deploy on GitHub and you're going to auto-deploy on Azure, just letting you know. Those two steps are going to be part of your assignment for next week. So please study that. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and see you next week.
For assignment, we need to have a